Good evening. I am Steve. This is my rock and metal life. And tonight we are definitely going to be talking about the Scorpions, but we're not talking about the crazy world. We're not talking about the Rock Believer record. We're not talking about anything all that recent. In fact, it's quite a ways in the past. And what I'm going to do tonight is something I'm going to do. I've been thinking about this. I'm going to do I guess it would be a regular feature on this channel. I don't know. I'm going to take a look back at an era of the Scorpions, an era meaning a set of records that came out back to back to back, a time frame where I just really feel like they hit on all cylinders. They probably peaked. They, commercially successful, but also the stuff that they came out with was absolutely fantastic. And the era I'm talking about tonight, it actually, this live record does it for me. It's the four records: Lovedrive, Animal Magnetism, Blackout, and Love at First Sting. And if you have this absolutely fantastic live record, Scorpions Worldwide Live, then you get highlights of these four records. And it's a good overview, and it's just a great period of time in the Scorpions' history, which is very long, very storied. Um, they started off in obscurity, and they had lineup changes, and then uh, after Taken by Force and before Lovedrive, I think it all kind of fell into place. And this era of the band, they came out with these records that just knocked me out and just hit me at the right time, because right when I was getting into music, um, and when I say music, I mean the good stuff. Uh, Lovedrive, I think, was already out there, and I do remember when Animal Magnetism came out, and uh, it was popular, and it got them on my radar, and that would have been 1980. And then it was Blackout that just went completely over the top for me. And Blackout got more radio airplay than I remember from the previous records. And they toured, they came around. I was old enough to uh, be able to go to concerts. I was going to concerts, but I missed them on that Blackout tour. I missed them. And then in '84, after I left high school, I was in the military. They came out with Love at First Sting. And if you can uh, make a perfect sequel to Blackout, uh, Love at First Sting would be it. Maybe a little bit more commercial radio friendly, maybe not. Uh, it it depends on how you look at it, I think. But they were, in fact, everywhere in '84 on that Love at First Sting tour. And off of that tour, they made the aforementioned live CD. And I actually saw them when they toured for this live CD, which isn't what Setlist says that they were doing in 1985. But I did see them in Tacoma, Washington on August 29th of 1985. They had Rat with them. They had a lesser known band named Victory with them. And this thing says Bon Jovi was there, Setlist, but they weren't. And also, Setlist has the track listing exactly the same order as what's on here, except for the very end is a little bit different. The encores were No One Like You and Can't Get Enough. And I remember I had the live record, I had it on cassette, and they played it in order. I was familiar with the order, and the t-shirts and the merch and all that stuff had this picture on it. So kind of a weird deal. I think the Love at First Sting tour was so successful that they got out there and capitalized on it, and they just kept going. Because on here it lists the dates for that tour that this live album came from, and it tells you where they, the cities they played in: San Diego, Los Angeles, a few other places, Paris, France. But it says the Love at First Sting tour was January 23rd of '84 to February 7th of '85. And obviously, I just said I saw them in August of '85. And this thing was out, and I was digging it. Um, just a absolutely tremendous live band. At the time, there wasn't anybody like making them. You know, nobody had just a huge leg up on them. I've already alluded to the fact that Van Halen on the 1984 tour, and really all their tours, uh, was just an incredible live band. You did have, of course, Kiss was out there. You had, uh, Triumph was one of my favorites with the great stage show. But Scorpions, it was a track meet up on stage every night. Klaus's voice was just fantastic, just super powerful, and you get a lot of that on this live CD. His banter with the audience, even like his talking voice, he does a lot of ascending. Are you ready to rock tonight? Kind of thing. But I'm gonna go through the records, which I have like kind of a mixed bag of what I have and what I don't have. I got some CD and some cassette. But Taken by Force, that was the last Uli John Roth record, and this was actually like some pretty good stuff. But I'm going to set that to the side. I point this out because I want to get to the point of this lineup. Lovedrive. When we get to Lovedrive, the next record after Taken by Force, and I think we're looking at 78 here. 77. Okay. Ooh, actually, Taken by Force is 77 and Lovedrive is 79. I'm sorry, I can't read. But anyway, Taken by Force, surprisingly smoother than I remembered it, and Roth is fantastic on this thing. And you've got Rudy Schenker and Roth are the two guitar players, and I think they really, after Virgin Killer and In Trance and all that stuff, I think they were rolling along, and they were getting smoother, getting better, getting to be the band that they were gonna be. But Lovedrive has this weird little dynamic where Michael Schenker shows up again from after being out of the band for many years. So you got Rudy Schenker and Michael Schenker, but you got Matthias Jabs, who is a huge part of this band's identity. And Lovedrive is where you have those guys, and Schenker's lead guitar. He's an extra guy on here. He contributes, meaning Michael. Rudolf Schenker and Matt Jabs, to me, that's the great two guitar punch that you hear on Blackout. And so, to me, they put the pieces in place here. And this record, Lovedrive, Loving You Sunday Morning, Another Piece of Meat, Always Somewhere, Coast to Coast, Can't Get Enough, Is There Anybody There, Lovedrive, and Holiday. Now, 5 of these songs are on this live record, and they picked 5 good ones. I would say Loving You Sunday Morning is one of my favorite, and then Another Piece of Meat, I can take it or leave it, but they always played that live. Always Somewhere, very interesting song to me, because I don't really care for the Scorpions ballads, believe it or not. I just Wind to Change and stuff like that. I just, it doesn't do it so much for me. That one I do like, and I also like Still Loving You from Love at First Sting. But then you go on through this, Coast to Coast, Can't Get Enough, and then Lovedrive. I would say Holiday's cool. It's no big deal. They played it live. It was a staple. But this is a really good record. This is them sliding into where they're going to be. It's like, I don't know, like Judas Priest maybe with Killing Machine / Hellbent for Leather, and then going into British Steel. The next record they came out with was Animal Magnetism, and this one here, oddball story on this. I mean, Make It Real, of course, was a staple of the live show, and it's on this live record. But then these other songs, Don't Make No Promises, Hold Me Tight, 20th Century Man, Lady Starlight. I've never owned this record in any format. Kind of weird. Even though I like a bunch of these songs in that. Crazy thing that happened when I was in high school. We had one of those spirit rallies for a football game coming up or something. and there was uh, the cheerleaders did a routine to Falling in Love. And I don't know if I'd heard the song or not, but I remember it really got me. I dug the guitar, I dug the song, and it just seems bizarro today that, you know, I mean, hey, when I was in high school, that, you know, they did a routine to that. And, you know, the people I knew that were into the music, you know, they said, oh, that was cool. That was such a great choice, you know. And I remember thinking, oh man, you know, that's 1980, so that would have been, I guess, my sophomore year, March of 1980s when Animal Magnetism came out. So that's a really good record. Obviously, it's got the zoo on it. Uh, I mean, there's some good tracks on here. The Zoo, Falling in Love, Make It Real. I've already mentioned. You know, don't make no promises. It's okay, but it's kind of a good live song. Uh, you know, the song Animal Magnetism. I like that too. Okay, so now we're two records into this run, and it just goes supernova after this for me because Blackout comes out, and I mean track after track after track on this thing. Blackout, Can't Live Without You, No One Like You. You Give Me All I Need, a pretty underrated song in my mind. And then Now, not that big a deal. Um, Dynamite, here's a song that the lyrics on this thing, and Dynamite is on the live record. Um, these are lyrics that at the time I thought, oh, that's, I don't know, that's a song. So, but you know, it's a smoking, you know, guitar track, you know, upbeat, up tempo, you know, really good song. And then Arizona and China White, you know, Arizona's kind of like a, you know, it's got the catchy chorus and all that. China White, like a grinder. And then I kind of like When the Smoke is Going Down. Is that a ballad of theirs? I think it is. Um, but anyway, that record, you know, kind of put them on the map, like for real. That one went platinum, as did Animal Magnetism. Lovedrive just went gold. Um, but then I will tell you what, 1984, I was in Orlando, Florida, and Love at First Sting came out, and I have the actual cassette that I bought. I think on the military installation, I believe is where I bought this, and wore this thing out. I mean, I played this over and over. I couldn't believe they were this good after Blackout, and I think I've always felt Blackout was, you know, my favorite of the two, but this thing here, uh, I mean, just this track list, Bad Boys Running Wild, uh, a great opener, you know. And as far as them being a guitar band, not one of their like challenging guitar songs, but just drives that song all the way through. Love it. Rock You Like a Hurricane. Uh, what can you say about that? The song, the video, you know, everywhere. You know, closely, probably their most closely identified song these days by everybody. And then, you know, I remember the third track, I'm Leaving You. Uh, that was on the radio all the time. Kind of a softer kind of thing. Kind of, you know, I mean, it's up tempo. It's, you know, it's two guitars. It's just like always, but you know, not the hard edge. It's not like Blackout or something like that. And I always loved that song. I always thought that was great. Coming Home, which they used as the opener on the live album, pretty good because that's a song about getting back out on the stage and playing for the fans. Kind of like Can't Live Without You off of Blackout. And then The Same Thrill, that's a, you know, ding, 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 you know, full speed ahead kind of thing. And then side two, which, because we had two sides, right? Big City Nights, you know, probably one of their biggest songs of their catalog. As Soon as the Good Times Roll, that's that, you know, uh, catchy chorus, you know, just kind of like da 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 da, and then here's your chorus that you're gonna remember, and then Crossfire, good song, and then Still Loving You, which is you know, that's a staple of the live show, and you know, it's one of those. I'm sure it was on Best of Rockers and Ballads. I don't know because I never bought that, but you know, there you go. 1, 2, 3, 4. We're, what are we looking at here? That was Lovedrive was 79, and Love Up First Sting was 84, and then the live record came out in 85, And you know, I think you bookend the whole thing. Uh, you know, I think you put a cap on the end of it with the live record because they took a break after that. As far as they were in that churn along with everybody else. They were record tour, and then they finally got to the promised land, and it got a little bigger, and then it got a lot bigger, and then they were just so huge. And it says here Lovedrive, it charted at 11, Animal Magnetism at 12, Blackout at 10, and Love at First Sting at 6. Okay, so and then Love at First Sting was triple platinum, whereas the other ones were gold, platinum, platinum. And so then they didn't come out with another record until Savage Amusement in '88. And there's some criticism about Savage Amusement. It does seem kind of like a little bit out of step, especially because they came back in 1990 with Crazy World, which I think this thing's fantastic. And so Savage Amusement, they dropped back to platinum, and then Crazy World, they went to double platinum, and it seemed like they regained their stride. But yeah, this is an era where like I say, I mean, commercially it worked. The songs, if you stack them all up, album per album, if you want to put like In Trance, Flight of the Rainbow, Virgin Killer, and Taken by Force up against those four, I think it's easy. I think these other ones are easy, and there's so much I appreciate about those earlier records, and when I go back and listen to them, like I played Taken by Force last night. I played it all the way through, and I was like, wow, that was even better than I remember. Steam Rock Fever to me is, it's just like kind of standard fare. But then like We'll Burn the Sky, The Riot of Your Time, that's another one I really like here. Your Light has just incredible instrumental in it. And then you got your He's a Woman, She's a Man. Big criticism of the Scorpions over the years is so many of their songs are about partying or playing live or just slamming chicks, like brain dead, full speed ahead kind of stuff. But then they turn around and they got Wind of Change, and they got stuff that's more mature or whatever you want to call it. Here with these early records, they're guitar records, and the songwriting I think gets better as you go along. When you get to this lineup where you've got Klaus and Herman Rarebell on drums, Francis Buchholz on the bass, and then you got Rudy Schenker and Matthias Jabs on the guitars. The guitars become kind of like what else happened in the '80s. The Uli Roth stuff, in my mind, that's not, uh, you know, that's not like Black Sabbath kind of heavy. That is not Randy Rhoads kind of virtuosity. It's a different thing. It's, because I mean, I don't want anybody to think like I'm insulting Uli John Roth by any stretch of the imagination. He's really good. It just sounds a little different. More maybe Richie Blackmore kind of thing. When you get these two guys, both guns blazing on Blackout and, Love at First Sting, it's heavier. The music business is going heavy, and these guys are like, pounding away on both sides of the stage. And, that classic 80s metal sound that we had, probably the first half of the 80s, until the hair metal and Guns N' Roses and Metallica and all this stuff came along that drove it different directions. This is this is a really good two guitar band. Rat was out there kind of doing the same thing. One guy's pounding away, the other guy's wailing. Tesla kind of, they had a really good two guitar set, and it's just a little different than what the Scorpions were doing before this. And I think the production's a whole lot better on these records, because they're climbing up the ladder. But I just think that I remember the days where you just couldn't wait for a record to come out. and you knew it was coming out, and you just can't wait to hear, what do they sound like now? What do they have for us? Is there, is there any kind of a surprise if they change their sound? If they updated? What is this band up to since the last time we heard them on record? And that's not the case today. And I know I'm talking about something way back in the past, but that's how it was for us. In those days, it was the you know people would talk about a band selling out or going commercial, and they felt betrayed and that kind of thing. And so to me, when I lock in on an era, like for me with Van Halen, of course, my favorite band, the first six Roth records, perfection in my mind, you know, and that whole thing's an era for me. And then everything that came after, I liked it better at some time, and other times I didn't really care for it. Same thing with the Scorpions. I like a lot of what came after Love at First Sting, especially that Crazy World, and uh, even the stuff they've done lately is real good. But it's not the same as when they were young and the industry was there to be had for them, and they were making their name, and we were showing up in droves, and we weren't showing up because like these days it's a legacy thing, and you've got this huge catalog, and you remember going way back when. Back then it was the game was on, and this band comes out with a record, and this band comes out with a record, and everybody's out there doing their thing, and maybe this record wasn't as good as that band's, but these guys were better in concert. All that stuff was going on. And I think the Scorpions nailed this era right here. These four records, I think they hit their stride. I believe they probably peaked, and you know they had all the success that they would ever need, and set the stage for them to still be out there today. And as I've said before, hey, they're on like year 5 of their farewell tour. Fine, go right ahead if you've got the wherewithal to do that. I just saw them last October here in Fresno. They filled up the basketball arena, which I'm kind of surprised around here. They could do that, but that's the kind of cachet they have. The last time I saw them, I think was in 17 or 18. I saw them at the Forum, Scorpions and Megadeth, and they filled the place up, the Forum in LA, and that's the cachet they have off of this. And these were the days, the good old days. It's pretty well captured right here. They sound pretty much like on the record, and when they don't, it's because they're wailing away on something extra. Um, great time for the band, and that's a pretty good run. What did I say? That was 79 to 84. That's a 5-year stretch. That it's up there in the top of all time rock music. That's a pretty good stretch. So that's just a little quick look back. I'm gonna do this with some other bands. I've got some other bands that have long careers, and there was a stretch in there. I already mentioned Van Halen. I'm probably not going to do that right away, but I got some other bands in mind. A stretch of 3 or 4 records that I feel like they really just nailed it. The growth, the growth came to fruition, and they hit us, year after year, just hit us with good stuff. But this is my first episode, or my first attempt, or my first failed shot down in flames misery of trying to explain what's happening in here. Just a good run for the Scorpions there, from Lovedrive to Love at First Sting. Highly recommend all 4 of those records, and I couldn't recommend the live album enough, because I love live albums when they're good, and that's a great one. That one is, it's up there with Deep Purple and Ted Nugent, Double Live Gonzo, and all those. So hey, thanks a lot, Scorpions. Gave me a lot to think about for the rest of my life, starting in '79.